Cool. Also someone here who comes from a slightly unconventional background. My name is Lora Kulm. I originally started out as a designer. So I did mobile design for a couple of years. I did web design for a bit. I did mobile web design. All of those things. Originally went to college to be a video game designer because who didn't? And so I had a plan. I found out that it was very hard to become a video game designer, so my plan was to teach myself how to code so that I would be more desirable as someone trying to enter the tech world. I can design, I can program. What more could you ask for? So I really worked throughout college on teaching myself UX design. I went to a very broad program that didn't teach any particular type of design, so most of my UX design is self-taught. At the same time, I was also teaching myself Android development because I decided I wanted to make the things that I was designing. And so these are some of the things that I discovered while I was doing that. Now I work professionally as an Android developer. Still doing design work, but a little less like Sketch and more XML. So one of the big things that I feel kind of had this shift into my current programming knowledge is learning the language. Like not learning a specific language like Java or Python. Like, yes, that would probably be helpful if you want to code, but learning the language of programmers. There are a lot of words out there that programmers like to use that sound really big and really scary, and they mean the most simple concepts. So you have all of these words that programmers like to throw around, like dependency injection, persistence. Then you have language-specific things like what's a method versus a function? Turns out they're the same thing. So I found out that it was a lot easier to Google things once you knew this language. You get a lot more results that tell you the thing that you want to learn when you Google how to persist data in an Android app versus how do I save things to my Android phone. So that was something that really helped me learn a lot more and get to the point that I could actually Google things and get the results I was looking for. Which brings me to my next thing. Google can be your best friend and your worst enemy. I think all of us here have been to a little place called Stack Overflow. So most of my self-taught coding days, my early days, basically consisted of me searching the things I wanted to do and going through every Stack Overflow post, copying the code, pasting it into an IDE, and finding what worked. So that really, sometimes it did work, sometimes it didn't. So that really did help me kind of put together things that did what I essentially wanted. They weren't very pretty, but ultimately I did learn while I was pulling things out and finding out that like removing this argument from the constructor actually made this thing work, and getting rid of this generic actually made this thing work. But really leveling up was learning how to read documentation. That was a great place to start. So most of the time documentation has a little bit better information than Stack Overflow does. Next thing that I learned was when the documentation was failing me, going through the source code, which as an Android developer is something that I have the ability to do and is really great and has a lot of information, and you get to read the comments that other developers were writing when they were thinking of making these things. And talking to other developers, like I had a real reticence to talk to people about my code. I felt like it wasn't good enough. I felt like I wasn't good enough to talk to other developers because I'm just like a self-taught developer. Like I'm not on the same level. I can't talk to people who have a computer science degree. So getting past these things kind of made me realize that there were a lot of other sources that I could look to, and Google was a great place to start, but it wasn't the end-all be-all. And finally, that little thing, talking to people. So I'm an introvert. A lot of people are. It is really great to talk to people basically anywhere you can, going to meetups, going to conferences, going to all these places, talking to your coworkers if you're working professionally. There's a lot of things that, again, you can't Google because it only exists in your project. So the only people who are going to know what this thing means are the people you're working with. And so if you're afraid to talk to them, you may spend hours upon hours doing something that you could have learned how to do in 15 minutes. And so again, as an introvert, that was something that wasn't very obvious to me. Like, I didn't think, like, I can just go ask people questions. It's much better to ask the random people on the internet on Stack Overflow these questions. So this is definitely not the end-all be-all list of how to learn things. This is basically the path I took. A lot of Googling, a lot of eventually talking to people. And so I hope that these few tidbits might help you in your journey as a professional developer, as a self-taught developer, wherever you may be, just something to kind of help you through your day. So thank you.